Hashtag we tried to tell you. When we were talking about the Louisiana gubernatorial election and all the statewide seats, Gary Chambers was talking about it. We were warning y'all. And when I said, beware of sitting your ass at home because stuff is going to go down that you don't like, it's playing out. Y'all, Jeff Landry ain't been the governor for 6 months. And hardcore MAGA right-wing extremists out of their damn mind Republicans are going mad in Louisiana. They just rejected a rape and incest exception for abortion in the state. Jeff Landry has been threatening to withhold critical infrastructure funds from the city of North Carolina unless the DA prosecutes women who have abortions. Now, Republicans, now it's the Holy Grail. They are moving expeditiously to rewrite the state constitution. The state house just voted to advance the bill calling for a constitutional convention. The bill is now headed to the Senate for debate. If passed, the constitutional convention will take place in August. Trust me, folks, they don't need any Democrats' opinion or advice on nothing. Dillard University political analyst Dr. Robert Collins joins us now from New Orleans. Doc, glad to have you here. You know, it drives me crazy when we talk about this stuff and people say, man, you just trying to get us to vote Democrat, you on the plantation, man, that stuff don't mean nothing, we not gonna be hurt, we done survived Republicans in power before. When you start talking about changing the Constitution, what did Rebecca say? Now, when you enshrine it in the Constitution, you can't just change it with the legislature because it is locked into place.
It's locked into place. Once the Constitution is rewritten, the only way you can change it is to call another constitutional convention, which of course takes supermajorities in both houses of the state legislature, and then a full vote of the people in a statewide election.
Meaning, if Democrats clawed back and took the supermajority away from the Republicans, it wouldn't matter because they would still be in power. If it doesn't pass the House and the Senate, it don't matter.
Yeah, the Democrats would have to get supermajorities in both houses, which is not going to happen.
Walk people through the type of dastardly, evil bills these Republicans have been quickly advancing. And folk watching and listening, I need y'all to understand, when I say quickly, I'm talking about they are moving at lightning speed, Robert.
Mm-hmm. So, everything the governor said he was going to do, he was going to do. So we had a crime session first. That was a special session. So they did away with parole, did away with probation. So basically, you have to serve your entire sentence. Now, they actually reversed a lot of the criminal justice reform measures passed, interestingly enough, with bipartisan support by the previous administration. So things like decriminalizing small amounts of marijuana, bills that stopped automatically putting mugshots online until those cases had been adjudicated. All of these bills that were just passed a couple of years ago with a lot of Republican votes. All of these bills are now being repealed. We have probably the strictest abortion law in the United States. I know there are a lot of very strict abortion laws in the United States now in the South, but ours is probably the strictest because it has no exceptions for rape or incest. I mean, it's a pretty absolutist law. There's legislation now to outlaw the abortion pill. So if in theory, if citizens were to get abortion pills in the mail, they could send police, and if the police catch you with it, you can be charged with a crime, even though you would have had the pill shipped in from somewhere that's legal, and they're still legal under federal law. So just very, very draconian conservative measures, which again, I mean, it doesn't surprise me at all, because the governor said he was going to do these things. So this is not a shock. It's not like the governor was hiding who he is and then he jumped up and said, here I am, I'm going to do all this secret stuff. No, the governor said exactly what he was going to do. So, and he's just doing what he promised his voters to do.
Well, see, this reminds me of, so this is like when Democrats are like, oh my God, I can't believe they overturned Roe v. Wade. I'm like, they've been telling your dumb ass for 50 years, that's what they plan was. So it wasn't like it was a surprise. But again, and so what is interesting to me, when I see these people now reacting, I'm sitting there going, see, this is what happens when you spend more time focusing on going to the homecoming game on election day than actually going out to vote. This is what happens when people are like, well, man, we didn't know that was an election. Well, a bunch of other people clearly knew that was an election. This is the frustration for me is trying to get our people to understand we can't be operating on the defensive and going, oh my God, what is happening, when the man said I was going to do it.
Mm-hmm. Well, what's interesting is just recently we had a committee form of former elected officials. There's at least one former mayor. There's some other former local in the city of New Orleans, supposedly to protect the city of New Orleans from any home rule charter changes or any attacks against our governing structure from the governor. But my first question was like, okay, well, where were these people during the election?
Right.
Instead of organizing now, what they should have been doing if these were issues that if they didn't want the home rule charter to change, they didn't want governance structures to change, they should have been registering the people to vote and then making sure people turned out on election day during the gubernatorial election. And this is nothing new. I mean, in recent elections, in Orleans Parish, in the city of New Orleans, if we can get 20% of the vote to turn out, we're doing great, So it's just 25%. That would be outstanding for us. And so we just see continual low voter turnout in Orleans Parish, and now we have public officials organizing because they're upset that the home rule charter might get changed. But this organization should have been, months ago, really years ago. And the primary organizing that you should have done is getting people registered to vote and then making sure people turn out on election day so that their voices can be heard.
Well, and this is why, for me, the reason why this is just sort of like just grates at me is because I hate playing on defense. I hate being emotional when, if you go on offense, you can stop it from happening before it goes in. Look, you may not prevent the Republicans from controlling both chambers, but you damn sure could have stopped it from having a supermajority, which now means they got to at least talk to the other side to get something passed. Now, they ain't got to talk to anybody. They can do whatever the hell they want to and tell Democrats, y'all sit over there and talk all y'all want to. We going to run this show, and y'all just sit there and be quiet.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. The Republicans do not need a single Democratic vote to pass any of those bills. They don't need a single one. All they have to do is just hold their
caucus.
Yeah, hold their caucus together. I just said my title was I had a different title just now.
So what about what about the this Constitutional Convention? I'm gonna go to questions from my panel in a second. What about simple majority, supermajority? Or is it 2/3? So can Democrats stop anything, or can Republicans just run roughshod, do whatever they want? So what are the rules of this Constitutional Convention?
Yeah. So because okay, so it takes 2/3 votes in both houses to call a constitutional convention, which is and so they've already passed it in the House. They're debating it in the Senate now. There were some amendments made to the governor's version. It's going to pass the Senate. We don't know exactly what form it's going to pass. I'm sure the Senate's going to introduce their own amendments. It's going to be changed. It's eventually going to pass in some form, and then all of the state legislators are going to become delegates to this convention. The governor, under the current legislation, he will appoint 27 members, and 27 members from outside of the legislature will become delegates, and then they will just sit as a body, and then it'll again, under the legislation could change, but under the current status of the legislation, basically the committees will meet, and the Constitution will be written or rewritten, and then it just has to be passed by majority vote. But then, of course, it has to be put on the ballot, and it has to be voted on by the citizens of Louisiana, and the citizens of Louisiana have to ratify it by an up or down vote, so by a simple majority. So right now, it'll be on the ballot during the November presidential election, and the citizens would get a vote, and it would be ratified by a yes or no up or down vote of the citizens.
So they want to have this constitutional convention in this August, and it go on the ballot this November.
Correct.
So if black folks rise up, and if sane white folks rise up, whatever they do can actually be stopped and not implemented, but that's going to require turnout.
Correct. I think the best shot if for people to stop it, I don't really, at this point, I don't think you can stop it, the new Constitution from being rewritten. The chance to stop it will be when it actually gets put on the ballot, because then it's just a simple majority vote, it's an up-down vote. So then it's a question of whether or not people decide to turn out and vote again. And I mean, let's be clear, there are a lot of white folks too that I think that are going to turn out, that are not happy about it. Not so much about the concept we don't need a new constitution, but Roland, last time we rewrote our constitution, which is 774, it was a 2-year process, and it involved sort of like a road show where legislative committees traveled all over the state and asked citizens what they wanted in the Constitution. And there were a lot of public meetings, and there was a lot of. Keep in mind, this would be a 2 to 3 week process. So there are a lot of people, including a lot of Republicans, who are saying, "Wait a minute, this is too fast. This is, we're not going to have enough time to have public input of this bill." So I think that if something's going to sink the bill, or something's going to sink the new Constitution being ratified, that's what might sink it, because a lot of people are saying it's being rushed, and there's just not enough citizen input as to what they need.
Robert?
So on that point, what is the plan in order to try to push these things through? Is it more public education? Is it engaging more of the state legislature? Because I believe if this works, it can be complicated around the country.
Well, you mean what is the plan of the Republicans to pass the Constitution? Or?
Exactly, because I've been talking to conservatives for years. They want to have a constitutional convention or convention of the state. They want to reform our Constitution, to 1789. They want to reform our Constitution to the Articles of Confederacy and enshrine white supremacy in our Constitution, and do that on a nationwide level. What is the plan? If they're doing that there, I believe that we'll start metastasizing nationwide, and we'll start seeing this be the norm as opposed to the aberration.
Yep.
Sure. I think, well, their plan is, I think, and this is just my view, I think their plan is that a lot of people are not paying attention right now. We just saw a poll by one of the local state pollsters who did a poll and listed, what is your number one issue. And of course, most people said crime. Secondary, people said economy and jobs. Only 1% of the respondents to the poll said that the Constitution or the Constitutional Convention was an issue of theirs. So I think the people that are trying to write the Constitution, their assumption is that most people are not paying attention right now because they just don't care. And so I think their hope is it's a complicated process. It's a complicated process. And so their hope is that they can go ahead and get it passed and put it on the ballot. And then they know they'll have very high Republican turnout because, Trump always carries our state and he will in the next election. And so they know they're just going to put it, on the ballot. And they're just going to say, oh, by the way, while you're there voting for President Trump, please vote for this constitutional rewrite. Knowing that most people have not read it and don't know what's in it and will just go along with what their governor tells them to do.
Rebecca.
Thank you for being on the show tonight. I'm concerned about the Black people in Louisiana. So right now, the Democratic Party in Louisiana is impotent and feckless. The Republican Party in Louisiana is power hungry. So do Black folks take over the Democratic Party and try to fight back, or they cut a deal with the Republicans? What's the best path forward for the Black communities in Louisiana?
Well, I can tell you. So we just did get a new chair of the Louisiana Democratic Party. The old chair was seen as being ineffective by Democratic activists, and so there was an election for new members of the State Central Committee, and a lot of community organizers organized and ran. And so they removed the former chair, and we got a new chair of the Louisiana Democratic Party who is African American. He's a lawyer and a former state representative, former colonel in the U.S. Army, and so he's and so we'll see what he does with the party. He's brand new. He's only been, I guess, about a month. He's only been there 3-4 weeks. So we'll see what, but the entire party is going to have to be reformed from the bottom up, not just from the top down, to become an organized party again. Now as far as cutting a deal with the Republicans, I can tell you, so in past legislatures, the legislative Black caucus did occasionally need to cut deals with the Republicans to get their issues taken care of. And they did. Basically, they served as the swing vote between factions of Republicans. So you had the very conservative Republicans and the somewhat conservative Republicans, and they would fight over committee chairmanships or who got to be speakers. And the Black caucus would come together, and they would serve as the swing vote in those disputes, and in return they would get some committee chairmanships and some of their issues. But the problem is now that the Republicans have supermajorities in both houses for the first time, literally for the first time in Louisiana history. The issue now is that they don't really have to play ball with the Black caucus anymore. Now, what's going to happen eventually? At some point in time in the future, there will be more factionalism and the Republicans will fight amongst themselves, and so then the Black caucus, and those guys are normally pretty smart about things because they have to be to survive. They will come in and they will serve mediators and they will serve as tiebreakers on some of those votes. So I'm not saying that I don't think it would be accurate to say the Black caucus doesn't matter. They still matter because they do vote together and have a block of votes, but they don't have as much influence that they had in previous state legislatures, just because the reality that the Republicans have the supermajorities in both houses.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Yep.
So I'm not, with all due respect, I'm not talking about the Black caucus because that is largely the Black Democratic caucus. I'm talking about actually Black communities in Louisiana because, quite frankly, some of the problems that we're seeing with the Democratic Party there, it's not just because of the chair that Republicans have a supermajority. That means the entire party is in shambles and that there's problems. So specifically, taking this out of the Democratic Party apparatus, really, what should Black communities in Louisiana do? Because I don't know that Black communities have a few months to wait to see what these new folks, because, you know, not everybody is like us, and all skin folk ain't kinfolk. So really, what should the average everyday Black person in Louisiana do in this type of situation to make sure that their family is protected moving forward?
Well, I mean, you know, what people should have been doing all along is engaging in the process and learning what's going on and actually registering and turning out to vote. Now the community is in. If you're on the liberal or the Democratic side of the ledger, you know, you're gonna, or if you are a Black person, just in general in Louisiana, you're going to find yourself on the short end of the stick simply because of lack of voter turnout over the last 5, 10, 15 years. I mean, voter turnout has just been declining. So it's you know, it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take a few election cycles. And now keep in mind, I mean, I'm a political analyst guy, so I know you're probably asking a more general question about community organizing, et cetera. But again, I'm a pollster and an analyst and a political guy, so I have to stay in my lane and talk about political issues. But from a political standpoint, I just think it's going to be a long slog, you know, back into influence, and it's just gonna. But it's not going to take magic. It's just going to take people to turn out to vote. I mean, we have in every election, Black folks are only turning out at about 15 to 25%. Mayor of New Orleans, we have a mayor election in New Orleans, and only about 30% of the Black vote turnout for mayor of New Orleans, for the mayor's election of New Orleans, right? Local election, who the mayor is directly affects your life, and we can only get about 30% of our voters to turn out.
Well, okay. So before I go to Scott, so with that said, who the hell in Louisiana is putting in the work? I'm sorry. Look, you've got former Congressman Cedric Richmond. You've got current Congressman Troy Carter. You got Mayor Cantrell. You've got city council members. You've got Black folks in other parts of the state. Who the hell? What is the organization that's looking to do what Stacey Abrams and her group did in Georgia to say, wait a minute, we got a bunch of Black folks in Louisiana. Somebody has to organize and mobilize them. Who's actually doing it? Take party out. Do you have 1 or 2 or 3 grassroots groups that are saying this is our number one priority?
We have grassroots group. Most of the active grassroots groups that we have are more involved in things like trying to create a second Black congressional district. But that's really a legal battle. I mean, that's been fought in the courts. I'm talking about who do you see who's really doing the work on the ground? And again, looking at what they did in Georgia to say, hey, you can't win jack 15, 18, 20%. I know Black Voters Matter is doing some stuff in Louisiana. Anybody else that's trying to create a statewide infrastructure that's not tied to party, but that's tied to a grassroots mobilization? Do you know of anybody? If it's happening, Roland, I have not seen it.
Well, right there, see, again, for me, I mean, you're the preeminent Black political scientist in the damn state, and if you don't know, that's the problem.
Yeah.
Scott?
Yeah, real quick. Are there Democrats who are going to be delegates to the convention, or just Republicans? Any of them up for re-election? Chance?
Yeah. So that, of course, there will be, all of the Democrats that are in the legislature will automatically become delegates. Tension. And interestingly enough, the governor in his 27 appointees that he's making, he has included a lot of Democrats. I guess he's trying to, show inclusivity. So for example, all the Black mayors of all of the cities have are going to be delegates. The mayor of Baton Rouge is a delegate who's a black female. The chair of the Democratic Party, even though he's not an elected official, the former elected official, but he's not elected, he is actually going to be a delegate to the convention. Yeah. So there will be a good number of black folks on the convention. Now, are they up for re-election? The problem is, so we just had our statewide elections in the state of Louisiana. We literally just had them a few months ago. So all of our state legislators are locked in for another 3.5 years.
Yep.
Because we just
Roland.
elections.
Yeah, Roland. The other thing is, I have not heard our guests talk about legal strategies or where the lawyers are in all of this. Have you heard of any legal strategies or talk to the lawyers for civil rights and economic justice or groups like that about how to slow this train down through the court system?
Well, but before Robert asked that, what you've seen the NAACP LDF was really taking the lead on the couple of things. One, the congressional creation of the second congressional district. That was that battle. You also, of course, have the battle going with the creation of the second Supreme Court position as well. And so that's where a lot of the legal stuff. Now, in terms of the Constitutional Convention, I haven't heard any groups targeting that. But Robert, go ahead.
Well, okay, so right now, of course, most of our civil rights lawyers are tied up with the federal legislation trying to create a second black congressional district, and that's a very hot issue right now. That's there was a filing this morning on that for the circuit. So that's what most of them are concerned with right now. Now, as far as trying to stop the Constitutional Convention, I think what you're going to see there, we haven't seen any lawsuits yet because they don't know exactly what the legislation is going to look like. It's in the House right now. It's going to the Senate. Now, once it passes the Senate and then it gets signed into law, that's when the civil rights lawyers will take a look at it. And if it looks like anything is in there that's going to be disenfranchising to black voters, then I'm sure they will take action then. So to answer your question, I do expect there to be some legal activity. I do expect some lawsuits to be filed. It's just that they're waiting to see what the final form of the legislation is going to look like, what the final organizing call of the Constitutional Convention is going to look like, and then they're going to go ahead and they're going to file their lawsuit. So I think lawsuits are coming.
All right. Dr. Robert Collins, always a pleasure. I certainly appreciate it, man. Thanks a bunch. We'll keep happening what's there. But again, it's way too many black people in Louisiana for us not to be a significant player because we're not exercising our power as a collective group.
Yeah. 1/3 of the population. 1/3 of the nation.
Sad. All right, Doc, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Roland. Thank you.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.